the Rector, Maritime Academy of Nigeria, Commodore Duja Emmanuel Ifedwa retired, here represented by Dr. Kevin Okunna. A special guest of honor here present with us this morning, members of Academy's management, the regimental unit commander and his team, staff of the Academy cadets and students, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here this morning. I welcome you warmly to the grand finale of the fourth quarter of the Maritime Lecture Series, holding here live at the Right Honorable Rotimi Chubike Amechi Auditorium of the Maritime Academy of Nigeria, the maritime training institution, one of its best in the entire globe, and we are very much glad to play host to this very important occasion this morning. The theme for this year's edition of the Maritime Lecture Series still remains promoting maritime safety in Nigeria's territorial waters, issues and prospects. And as always, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are live on air and being joined by very top industry players in the maritime sector, and as well as an array of intellectuals from the maritime industry here present with us this morning to grace this occasion. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to get started, we will sing the national anthem, and thereafter we will all recite the national pledge. But before then, I'd like to please indulge and crave the indulgence of every one of us here to pay an unwavering attention to details pertaining this lecture series today, as this event promises to be very much informative, interactive, and engaging. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to get started proper, please, shall we all be upstanding as we take the national anthem? Thank you. We shall be singing the national anthem at the count of 2. 1, 2. The pledge. Thank you. May please respectfully resume your seats. Thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to please take the time out to appreciate all our online community, those who are following us up online via Facebook and live YouTube stream. Thank you very much. We get your comments, and this is another time again to engage you in a conversation that pertains the maritime sector. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I will want to please respectfully acknowledge specifically our very eminent personalities in our midst this morning. Please, with a resounding applause, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together as I acknowledge and recognize the presence of Mrs. Oritsematosan Edodo-Emore for being here this morning. Please make that applause louder. Thank you. We also have seated with us this morning a very special guest, Barrister Anabraba Kioba. With the resounding applause, please, let's put our hands together for her. Come on, make that applause louder, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Seated in our midst as well to grace this occasion are very erudite scholars, directors of schools, heads of departments. I'd like to please acknowledge every one of them collectively. The Academy's faculty here present. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for our directors, and heads of departments here present with us this morning. Please, let's applaud them. Thank you. Thank you. I will not want to fail to acknowledge also the man that has made this possible for every one of us to be here, the Rector, Commodore Duja Emmanuel Ifedwa, retired. Please, with a resounding applause, ladies and gentlemen, let's appreciate him with a very loud applause, please. Thank you. The next item on our serial this morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, is the welcome remarks. And to bring us that is the representative of the Rector, Dr. Kevin Okunna. Please, with a resounding applause, let's invite him up to the podium as he gives us a very warm welcome remarks. Make that applause louder. Make that applause louder. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DMC. Good morning, everybody. Let me utilize already established protocols by the MC, but without specially appreciating the presence of our guest speakers. Again, I have the honor of the mandate of the Rector of Maritime Academy of Nigeria, Commodore D.E. Ifedwa, to welcome you to day 3 of this week's Maritime Lectures, the third in this year that we have held. And you still remember that the discussions are on promoting maritime security in Nigeria's territorial waters, issues and prospects. Earlier on, we had maritime lectures on blue economy and on revamping Nigeria's maritime industry, also looking at issues and the challenges and the prospects. So I have the opportunity again to remind you that this is a rare privilege that the management of the Academy is making available to our cadets and the community to enrich our knowledge and interact with the very best in the industry. When the moderator rolls out the pedigree of the guest speakers that management has invited to speak to us, you will realize who they really are, and you will appreciate the privilege you have to interact with these experts in the industry. About a month ago, I had the privilege of being at the Lagos International Maritime Week, and that was put together by our very dear lady, Mrs. Edodo-Emore, who is also going to speak to us on the topic from which we took the theme for this particular lecture. So, having said all this, it's also good to tell our guests, especially those who have not been here, that Maritime Academy of Nigeria is the best in so many ways. Is the best in so many ways. We pride ourselves as possibly the best campus that you have for maritime education and training, eco-friendly wise. We pride ourselves as the best when we are talking about having the right jetty that is equipped for training in survival. We pride ourselves as the best when it comes to our cadets winning the best prizes. We pride ourselves as the best recognized by the Maritime Administration. And we pride ourselves as the best when it comes to the collection of the best training simulators and other equipment that you can think about in maritime education and training. And we'll be very happy to take our guests on facility tour of these facilities that have been mostly brought into the academy by the present rector. And we do that with dedication because we want Nigerians to appreciate what they have. It's not every time that Nigerians that live outside of the state have the opportunity to see this Maritime Academy of Nigeria, so that they can help us promote the academy, so that they can help us build partnerships with other global institutions. As you heard yesterday, there's a lady that spoke to us, and she talked to us about 5 ex-cadets that she mentored, and they are all working abroad, and they are all working for international shipping companies. These are the benefits of this kind of interaction that we have to have with the experts in the industry. So having said this, on behalf of the rector, I welcome all of you again, and I have the special privilege of declaring today's lectures open. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. Please put those beautiful hands together for Dr. Kevin Okonna for declaring today's lecture series open. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Cadets, it's only going to get better and better per time. And now we are about getting to the main matter for the day. Please, you are expected to get your writing materials, get your pen and your paper, whatever gadget you are using to collect information. Ensure that you take away every form of distraction and pay very, very articulate attention to every detail that will be presented here today. Please, for the next 50 minutes, we will be listening to the first paper presentation by our very esteemed resource person. Please, with the resounding applause, ladies and gentlemen, before we listen to our resource person, our citation will be read, and then you get to understand many other positive parts of our resource person and why she is very much fit enough for this lecture presentation this morning. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please, with the resounding applause, join me as I invite to the podium for the first paper presentation for today, Mrs. Edodo-Emore, Oritsematosan.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a brief citation of our fourth guest presenter for the Maritime Lecture Series. Mrs. Oritsematosan Edodo-Emore is an esteemed international maritime and commercial lawyer with a wealth of experience in both legal practice and maritime industry leadership. She is a partner at Edodo and Associates, a firm that specializes in international business transactions, maritime law, and maritime arbitration. In addition to her legal practice, she chairs Zoe Maritime Resources Limited, a company dedicated to developing maritime capacities and capabilities across the globe. Mrs. Edodo-Emore holds a Bachelor of Laws degree from the University of Buckingham and a Master's of Law degree from the University of London, both in England. She was called to the Nigerian Barr in 1981 and has a working knowledge of French, having studied French language and civilization at both the Université Catholique de Lille in Lille and Université Catholique de l'Ouest in Angers, France. A highly sought-after resource person, speaker, and content developer, she is known for her active participation in international maritime conferences and workshops across Africa, Europe, and North America, as well as her appearances on television. She is the founder and convener of the Lagos International Maritime Week, an annual event that brings together global maritime stakeholders to discuss pressing issues identified by the International Maritime Organization. Additionally, she is the founder of the Maritime Business Roundtable Breakfast Meetings, a platform that addresses maritime challenges and seeks practical solutions. Mrs. Edodo-Emore holds several prominent leadership roles, including serving as the Secretary General of the Franco-Nigerian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, President of Women in Maritime of West and Central Africa, Nigeria, President of Oritsematosan International, Ikoyi, and the Treasurer of the Nigerian Maritime Law Association. Her exemplary contributions to the maritime industry, her leadership in promoting gender equality and inclusion, and her dedication to advancing the legal and business aspects of maritime law make her an influential figure and inspiration to many. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first presentation of today, Mrs. Oritsematosan, Edodo-Emore.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Representative of the Rector, Dr. Kevin, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor for me to be here this morning. I am greatly humbled by this invitation. I'm excited to be here. Everyone who has spoken on this platform have been giants in the industries, pace setters, icons, and so I'm actually thrilled to be here. It's my first time in Uyo. In fact, I hadn't gone further than, it's my first time in Oron. I hadn't gone further than Uyo in Akwa Ibom State. So doing the trajectory from Uyo to this place has been an eye-opener. I'm delighted to see all of you, and I look forward to visiting this illustrious institution after this session. I'm particularly touched to be here because Maritime Academy Oron is an institution that we read about, we hear about on television, and we meet representatives of these institutions in maritime functions all over the country. But being here physically gives a new dimension to that relationship. The topic that we're going to be dealing with is a topic that is close to my heart. And it's particularly interesting because at the last Lagos International Maritime Week, which held from the 10th to 12th of September, maritime security in the Gulf of Guinea was one of the topical issues that we dealt with. In fact, it always opens the session of the Lagos International Maritime Week. This institution has always been present at the Lagos International Maritime Week. They were present at this time, and I hope that, of course, the relationship would continue. I took the liberty when I got the invitation to extend the topic because the topic read promoting maritime safety in Nigeria's territorial waters. I took the liberty to add security because maritime safety and security go together. So I would be dealing with the expanded topic of promoting maritime safety and security in Nigeria's territorial waters. I have a slide presentation which I will present now, but I also prepared a prose presentation which I believe that the organizers would distribute to you so that you can add it as part of your lectures. Thank you very much. So I would start the slide presentation now. So the first thing to do is always to start from beginning. We're going to be dealing with maritime safety and security in Nigeria's territorial waters. The first thing to do to ask is, what do we mean by Nigeria's territorial waters? And that is defined in the law called the Territorial Waters Act of 1998. And in Section 1, it says clearly that the territorial waters of Nigeria shall, for all purposes, include every part of the open sea within 12 nautical miles of the coast of Nigeria, measured from low water mark or of the seaward limits of inland waters. The next question would be, if we have our territorial waters, why should Nigeria's territorial waters be safe and secure? What does it do to us? Why are we asking this question? And the answer is found in the draft National Policy on Maritime Transport. Chapter 1 of that document explains that. And I'd like to add that I was part of the persons that drafted the National Maritime Policy for Nigeria. That policy states that Nigeria is a littoral state. That means it's a state by the water. It has a coastline of 466 nautical miles. It has territorial waters of 12 nautical miles. It has contiguous zone of 24 nautical miles. It has economic zone of 220 nautical miles. And of course, the country has inland waterways of 10,000 kilometers. In all of these areas, there are significant living and non-living things in the water. There's oil and gas deposits and installations in the water. There's fish and marine life. And on top of all of this, 80% of the national budget of Nigeria is based on resources from this area. Oil and gas resources is carried by sea. So this means that for her own benefit, in order to develop her people, in order to exploit the natural resources in Nigeria's waters, in and under the water, it is in Nigeria's best interest to keep her territorial waters not only safe, but also secure. And so we would ask, how does Nigeria keep her territorial waters safe and secure? She does so by a combination of the architecture of her navy, of her maritime police force, of her maritime parastatals such as NIMASA, and also using the equipment of legislation. And so I will deal with these now one by one, starting with Nigeria's Navy. Now, the law makes the Nigerian Navy part of the armed forces in order to further Nigeria's maritime security and in order to enforce her maritime laws and also to further Nigeria's diplomatic interest. According to law, the Armed Forces Act, the Nigerian Navy is the primary provider of maritime security for Nigeria. Now, Section 1.4 of the Armed Forces Act makes that possible, makes the Navy the chief law enforcer at sea, makes the Navy responsible for charting and coordinating all national hydrographic surveys, and makes the Navy the enforcer of maritime safety regulations in Nigeria's territorial waters and in her exclusive economic zone. Does the Nigerian Navy do all of this alone? No, she doesn't. The Navy collaborates with the Customs Service, with the Nigerian Immigration Service, with the Maritime Police Command, and with NIMASA in order to achieve the purposes that the law has set for her. Now, as the chief law enforcer at sea, as I said, that right, that power derives from Section 1.4 of the Armed Forces Act. The Nigerian Navy is able to enforce custom laws. She's able to pursue anti-bunkering. She's able to enforce fisheries and immigration laws, and also national and international maritime laws to which Nigeria ascribes. The law also recognizes the Navy as a partner of NIMASA. The NIMASA Act of 2007 states that NIMASA should consult with the Navy in the exercise of some of her functions. So, in practice, NIMASA and the Navy have to work together in order to keep Nigeria's territorial waters safe. The Navy also acts as a backup force for the Cabotage Act. Section 33-31 of the Cabotage Act states that enforcement officers, NIMASA has enforcement officers, and they have the power to go aboard a vessel, to detain that vessel, if they believe that either the crew or the vessel on reasonable grounds are infringing the Cabotage Act. Now, in exercising those powers, the enforcement officers are authorized to seek the assistance of the Navy. Mark you, the enforcement officers at NIMASA, they may be civilians. So they need the military power of the Navy to assist them in boarding a vessel, detaining it, or if they find anything that is contrary to the Cabotage Act on that vessel. And so the Navy has taken some other practical measures to keep Nigeria's territorial waters secure. And especially since the passing of an act which is called the SPOMO Act, which is Suppression of Piracy and Other Maritime Offenses Act. Since that passing of that act in 2019, the Navy set up some practical steps to prevent maritime crimes, such as, for example, oil theft. The Navy set up what is called checkpoints, choke points, in which they're putting a narrow path so that when vessels are forced to stop there, and they can inspect and search. And also, the Navy established set up the Falcon Eye, which is an over-horizon maritime security surveillance equipment which sees up to 70 nautical miles to survey Nigeria's maritime domain. Internationally, the Navy promotes collaboration, especially with other navies in the Gulf of Guinea countries. And the Navy is active in promoting, enforcing, and participating in the Yaoundé Code of Conduct and the Yaoundé Architecture. These are maritime architectures which encourages exchange of information, maritime security information amongst maritime establishments, especially the Regional Maritime Center for Central Africa and the Regional Maritime Center for West Africa. All of these are important institutions exchanging information with the Nigerian Navy to keep Nigeria's maritime domain safe and also the Gulf of Guinea safe. Now, another institution that keeps Nigeria's territorial waters safe and secure is the Maritime Police Command. Now, the Armed Forces Act of 1993 did not name the Nigeria Police as a part of the armed forces. Only the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force were named in that law as part of the armed forces. But the Nigerian Constitution says in section 214(2)(c) that the National Assembly has power to make provisions for branches of the Nigerian police force to become part of the armed forces to protect the harbors and the waterways in the country. So following following the Constitution, in 2012, the Maritime Police Command was established as a merger of the Marine Police, which was in existence already, the Inland Waterways Police, and the Port Authority Police Command. All of these three now form the Maritime Police Command, whose responsibility we shall soon see. Now, what does the Maritime Police Command do? The Maritime Police Command guards and protects what is called the brown waters. That is the inland waters. It conducts security combat and anti-crime operations on Nigeria's territorial waters into the inland waters, into the ports and into the harbors. So its jurisdiction is local. And these local waters is what is called the brown waters. The Nigerian Navy, on the other hand, enforces safety regulations in Nigeria's territorial waters, her EEZ, and into the international waters. That is called the blue waters. And the Armed Forces Act is the one that gives the Nigerian Navy the power to do this. However, in the exercise of their functions, both the Nigerian Navy and the Maritime Police Command, their functions overlap. Now, Section 4D of the Police Act of 2020 says that the police shall enforce all laws and regulations without prejudice to the enabling acts of other security agencies. Other security agencies means the Navy, NIMASA, and so, of course, this means that the Maritime Police can enforce laws within the statutory competence of the Navy. That means the power that had been granted to the Navy by the Armed Forces Act has also more or less been made available to the police, in this case, the Maritime Police Command. The Maritime Police Command is also involved in international partnerships and in collaborations with regional organizations and in cooperation in order to keep the Nigerian territorial waters safe and secure. Now, the Maritime Police Command cooperates a lot with the UN Office of Drugs and Crime, and with this collaboration, it receives a lot of assistance to fight armed robbery at sea from the UN organization. The Maritime Police Command is also involved with a body called Support to West Africa Integrated Maritime Security, SWAMS, which trains it in search and rescue operations. All of this knowledge it brings to bear in keeping Nigeria's territorial waters safe and secure. Now, the next organization that keeps Nigeria's territorial waters safe and secure is NIMASA, Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. NIMASA is the chief regulator of maritime safety in Nigeria, and it is the body that actualizes the intentions of the International Maritime Organization, the IMO. It champions domestication of maritime conventions, and it seeks to enforce maritime safety regulations in Nigeria. So NIMASA, really, you can say that NIMASA is the local IMO on ground, seeing that anything that IMO wants done in a country, NIMASA ensures that that is done, or tries to see that that is done in Nigeria. Now, as regards maritime safety and security, NIMASA in 2021 launched a project which is an integrated national security and water protection system called the Deep Blue Project. Now, this project is a great arsenal of land, sea, and air resources to protect Nigeria's territorial waters. It has all of this arsenal: 2 special mission vessels, 17 fast interceptor boats, 2 special mission aircraft for surveillance of the EEZ, 3 special mission helicopters for search and rescue operations, and 4 unmanned aerial vehicles. Now, the good news is that since the launching of this project, maritime security and maritime threats to Nigeria's territorial waters has reduced drastically. Nigeria has been able to deal with the issue of piracy and armed robbery at sea in a drastical manner. Now, the Navy, NIMASA, and the Maritime Police also overlap in their functions. Section 23(6) of the NIMASA Act gives NIMASA enforcement powers equal to that exercised by the Navy and the Maritime Police in inland waters, in Nigeria's territorial waters, and in the EEZ. That law says that designated officers of NIMASA shall have all powers which any enforcement agency may exercise under any federal law which is applicable to Nigerian maritime zone. Now, any enforcement agency, the Navy is an enforcement agency, the Maritime Police is an enforcement agency. So you see that in this law gives NIMASA some powers which the Navy had been exercising and which the Maritime Police Command also have the power to exercise. Now, the Navy and NIMASA also have overlap functions in the implementation of international maritime laws. That's because the Section 22 of the NIMASA Act says that NIMASA would establish procedure for implementation of IMO and ILO conventions. IMO, International Maritime Organization, and International Labour Organization conventions. But Section 14 of the Armed Forces Act also gives the Navy the power of enforcement of national and international maritime laws to which Nigeria ascribes. You remember that whenever an IMO convention is an international law to which Nigeria ascribes. So these 2 legislations give NIMASA and the armed forces. NIMASA now enjoys the same power that the Navy had been given earlier on. And so we thought, now, since it appears that these functions overlap, in practice, each of these 3 institutions tend to focus on different areas. We'd find that in practice, NIMASA is concerned with enforcement of legislation within Nigeria, within Nigeria's inland waters, within her ports and her harbors. The Maritime Police also, in practice, is concerned with security in inland waters, in the ports and in the harbors. This is the area that the Maritime Police Command describes as the brown waters. But the Navy is concerned with security outside of the inland waters, but within the EEZ. And so the Navy is mostly concerned with security in the international waters, which is called the blue waters. Although, from time to time, the Navy had been called upon to deal with security within the inland waters. Now, the next instrument that Nigeria uses to protect her territorial waters is the law. And the most audacious is the Suppression of Piracy and Other Maritime Offences Act of 2019. This is a very important legislation which gives impetus to safety of Nigeria's territorial waters. This law is important because it is the practical domestication of two important foremost UN conventions for regulating maritime crimes in the world. And these are the United Nations Convention on Law of the Seas of 1982 and the Suppression of Unlawful Acts Convention of 1988. These are the two laws the conventions that form the basis of our Suppression of Piracy and Other Maritime Offences Act of 2019. In this law, piracy is clearly defined. Piracy is defined as an act committed against a ship in international waters or in a place outside of the jurisdiction of any country. It's an illegal act committed in international waters. And this law also clearly defines armed robbery at sea, defines it as seizing a ship by force, receiving ransom because the people in the vessel are kidnapped. If all of this is done within the Nigerian Maritime Zone and the Nigerian jurisdiction, that would be maritime offenses. And the law lists all kinds of things as maritime offenses. These are listed in paragraphs A to R of that section 4. This POMO Act also gives the Nigerian Navy an important part to play. In addition to the powers that had been given to it before under the Armed Forces Act and also under the NEMASA Act. On a practical side, because of this POMO Act, Nigeria has now been able, especially with the assistance of the Navy, to successfully arrest, prosecute, and convict hijackers of vessels. I gave this example of this Equatorial Guinea flag vessel LOB. The matter actually came to the Federal High Court in Lagos. The persons were actually prosecuted and convicted of the crime. Before this act, this was an almost impossibility. And so, in going forward, although we are making progress in guarding our territorial waters by the activities of our Navy, Marine Police, NEMASA, and also private organizations, there's still work to be done. And our advice is review of maritime legislation to avoid overlap of functions of the Navy, NEMASA, and the Maritime Police. And for us to acknowledge that Nigeria as a developing nation is work in progress, and so are Nigerian institutions. So we must continue to improve on the current steps to promote maritime safety and security in Nigeria's territorial waters. And we believe that the progress so far made would be maintained. Thank you very much, and I'm ready to answer your questions.
Thank you so very much, ma'am, for that very, very enriching paper presentation that was quite robust. And I'm sure cadets took note of all that has been said here this morning. One more time, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please, let's applaud our very resource person for that very enriching paper presentation. Thank you. Beyond the practical measure to combat maritime offenses, she has also expounded on the topic promoting maritime safety and security in Nigeria's territorial waters, issues and prospects. And I'm sure we all paid very, very keen attention. Right now, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the floor is open for our cadets to please air out your question. If you have any questions, please endeavor to walk to the mic stand and ask your question. Our resource person is here, very much ready to attend to your question. Cadet, over to you right now. Okay. Cadets, question time. I saw some of the cadets taking notes. I'm sure you want to air out your question, please. Any question? Okay, thank you. One more time, please. Let's applaud our very esteemed resource lecturer this morning. Thank you. I'm sure in the course of this lecture presentation, questions will definitely come from the cadets. Okay? I don't know if the floor is also open for any of the panelists to ask any questions. Please, directors, heads of departments. Okay, thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to please remind you one more time that this event is live on air, and you can as well send the link to your friends, your loved ones, extend the invitation to them and let them be joined with us here this morning. And for those of us who are already following up this event online, thank you very much. We are receiving your questions and your comments. Please, if you have any questions, endeavor to put them on the questions section and it will be treated accordingly. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about time we will now listen to the second paper presentation. Before we invite to the podium for the second paper presentation, for the next 50 minutes, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we will be listening to a topic: abuse of power in academic institutions, the intersection of sexual harassment and grade manipulation. And to bring us an elaborate expansion on that topic is no other than Barrister Anabraba Kioba Q. Please, with the resounding applause, ladies and gentlemen, let's invite our next paper presentation.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, cadets, a brief citation for our fifth presenter for our Maritime Lecture Series. Barrister Anabraba Kioba is a highly accomplished and experienced legal professional with over 18 years of post-call experience. A graduate of law from Rivers State University, she has built a distinguished career in corporate and public law. Barrister Kioba further enhanced her expertise by obtaining a master's degree in international corporate and financial law from the University of Wolverhampton, UK, which provided her with a global perspective on complex legal issues. Currently, she is pursuing a doctorate in public law at Rivers State University, showcasing her commitment to continuous learning and contributing to the development of legal thought in Nigeria. She is also a prosecutor with the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, where she plays a pivotal role in the fight against corruption and promoting good governance. Her work with the Commission has involved handling high-profile cases related to corruption, reinforcing her dedication to justice and accountability. With a career marked by integrity, expertise, and a passion for advancing the rule of law, Barrister Kioba continues to make significant contributions to Nigeria's legal landscape. Her professional journey is a testament to her leadership and her commitment to serving the public with excellence and dedication. Ladies and gentlemen, for our final presentation for today, Barrister Anabraba Kioba.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am highly pleased to be here again. This is the second time I am privileged to speak to cadets. And I want to greet my learned senior. I was taken aback when I heard that she was called in 1981. I was crawling or learning how to work then. I was afraid when I had 1981. You're highly welcome, ma'am. Quickly, standing on the already established protocol, we'll be talking about abuse of power in academic institutions, the intersection of sexual harassment and grade manipulation. Now, this is a very interesting topic. As interesting as it is, people shy away from it. They don't want to discuss it. And it is not as if it doesn't exist. It does exist. When we were in school, most of us experienced it. So we'll be talking about that. We'll look at what sexual harassment is, the forms of sexual harassment, what it looks like, and then the types, the categories, sex for marks, money for marks, why sex for marks, the effects of sexual harassment, why money for marks, which we call sorting, types of sorting, the consequences of sorting, and then we'll go into law, the legal framework, and what institutions do about this problem. Student activism, how do you report cases of sexual harassment or extortion from lecturers? Now, sexual harassment is usually defined as any unwelcome sexual advances demand for sexual favors, or any unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature targeted at someone either in the workplace, professional setting, social gathering, because of the person's gender, whether male or female. It also includes acts or words with sexual undertone targeted at creating a hostile environment for individuals or for a particular individual. Grade manipulation, on the other hand, is an intentional alteration or falsification of a person's academic grades or scores to achieve a particular purpose. It could be manipulated upward, making a person appear to be competent, or downward to make a student appear incompetent. Now, both sexual harassment and grade manipulation are forms of corruption, academic corruption. It constitutes violence against a target, and where the person who is doing the targeting does so by virtue of the office he or she occupies, it becomes an offense under the Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Act. In recent times, there are reports of instances of sexual harassment in corporate world, armed forces, even religious organizations, and in schools. We know that in every society, the reason why we go to school is to learn something positive. We want to receive knowledge for ourselves and to improve our society. Therefore, any institution where sexual harassment and grade manipulation thrive is a direct attack not only on the individuals but the society. Do you agree with me? Yes. So what is sexual harassment? Sexual harassment is any conduct that is sexual in nature, like I said, and it is unwelcome. It is an invasion of a person's space that violates the rights and dignity of the person. It is a conduct that is unwelcome, and the fact that a student or a victim fails to report or doesn't say anything about it or yields to it doesn't make it welcome. I don't know the age range of cadets here, but we know that minors, and a minor in Nigeria is any person that is below the age of 18, cannot give consent. Both male and female students can be victims of sexual harassment. Now, what are the forms of sexual harassment? What does it look like? How does it appear? Sexual harassment can take different forms depending on the harasser, the person who is doing the harassment, and the nature of the harassment. It may be physical conduct of a sexual nature, or verbal conduct of a sexual nature, or non-verbal conduct of a sexual nature. I'll explain. Physical conduct. Professor A asking student B, please take my books to the staff room, to my office. You grab the books, you go to the office, you leave it on his desk, say thank you. As you're leaving, he blocks the door to give you a hug. That is sexual harassment. Why are you murmuring? You don't like to hear it. It is sexual harassment. Or grabbing your hand. I don't know, people do that. And they start, drawing something on the palm of your hand without saying anything. It is an harassment. It could be verbal, coming explicitly to say what they want. It could be non-verbal. Winking, lip snacking, making some form of sounds whenever they see the person saying, without saying anything. So, putting pressure on a student to go on a date, or wanting to date a student, or having a romantic or intimate relationship with the student is sexual harassment. Unwelcome touching, hugging, massaging, kissing a student is sexual harassment. Staring or leering at a student. Every time you just fix your eyes on a student, when the person moves to the right, your eyes will move to the right. When the person moves to the left, the eyes will follow. It is sexual harassment. Suggestive comments or jokes. Unwelcome jokes. It's sexual harassment. Sexual innuendos. They are indirect but suggestive. Indirect, but yes, they are suggestive. Hooting, lip smacking, intrusive questions about a person's life or body. Why ask, do you have a boyfriend? Do you drink alcohol? Do you go clubbing? Between lecturer and students. What drives you? What are your fantasies? It is sexual harassment. Unnecessary familiarity, such as deliberately brushing up against a person. You know that there is no space that can take two persons. You want to force yourself so that the body can touch. Why are you murmuring? Unwanted invitations to go out on dates, unwelcome sexual advances, including requests for sex or other forms of sexual favors. Now you know there is a difference between sex and sexual favors, because what may gratify one person may not be what gratifies another person. For one, just hugging the person is enough. Sitting on their laps, thighs, is enough. Touching is enough. Sending pictures, it's enough. And for others, they say no. When I say pictures, I mean nude pictures. Even if it's not nude pictures, they may just use that to gratify themselves. And then having sexual intercourse. Fame. Insults. It will surprise you to know that someone who is having interest in a student may not come outright to say anything, but would want to create a toxic environment for that person. You see the student, you want to talk down on the person. You make the environment so uncomfortable for the person and all that. Whereas the intention is actually to sleep with the student. You make the student to feel inferior at all times. Sexually explicit emails or SMS messages. Obscene phone calls, calling a student at 12 midnight, 1 a.m. I didn't see you in class today. I just remembered and said I should call. Why are you making noise? Stalking, cyberbullying with sexual undertones, and then sexual assaults. So sexual harassment does not refer to what is generally acceptable. For example, if your lecturer sees you in the morning and greets you first, say, Tonya, how are you today? Say, I'm fine, sir. That doesn't mean he's harassing you, please. It refers to a behavior that is unwelcome, personally offensive, debilitates moral, and therefore interferes with the learning environment. Now, what are the types of sexual harassment? We have what we call the quid pro quo. It is a trade by barter thing. You give me this, I give you that. Are we following? Hello? Yes. So this means giving something in exchange for something. When a person in a position of power, the lecturer, the academic staff, gives reward, including better grades or promotion, in return for sexual acts, it is quid pro quo. Hostile environment, when they make the place toxic for someone who is a target. Stalking, a form of harassment that involves repeatedly following the person. Where you get a call, Cadet A, you have a visitor. By the time you get to the gate, you see that Professor D is already there, acting as though he's looking for something. No, he's not looking for anything. He's only following you. He wants to know who is looking for you. Cyberbullying, a form of harassment that involves the use of digital platforms. They may not send a direct message to you, but maybe just drop something on their status. Everyone else could read it, but you know that they are talking about you. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Your name is not written there. People read, people make comments and all, but the moment you read it, something tells you, it is me this man is talking about. Or it is me this woman is talking about. Sexual exploitation. It involves abusing power or authority to manipulate, coerce, or take advantage of someone for sexual purposes, often by threatening or pressuring them into actions against their will. So the fact that the student yields to it doesn't mean it is a welcome act. Doesn't mean they like it. Now, a classmate can also harass his or her classmates or co-workers. They could harass each other. It happens, okay, peer-to-peer harassment, it happens between individuals of equal standing, your classmates or co-workers in the workplace. For students, one may harass another student through bullying, teasing, or making unwanted advances. You know? Colleagues may engage in inappropriate behavior, such as spreading sexual rumors. They haven't heard anything, but they just carry it. Student A is sleeping with Professor D. There is nothing close to that. They begin to spread rumors. Now, sex for marks. What is sex for marks? It is not in all cases that the lecturer, hello, you don't like to hear it, but you will hear it because the chief executive officer has directed that you be told. So you must hear it. Now, it is not in all cases that the lecturer or lecturers demand for this. Sometimes the students bring out themselves to show that I can give this for that. Or even without saying I can give this for that, they know that the moment they give that, you owe them a favor. After all, the Bible says a man's gift make room for him, right? So if you give this without saying anything, you know that you will get something. So sex for marks simply means a transactional exchange of sexual benefits for better or passing grades. It is a transaction. It could be in the form of having either sexual intercourse with the student or giving sexual satisfaction, whichever way, in exchange for better grades. So this ugly issue has received a lot of attention in recent times. We read it on the social media, it's everywhere now. You know? Now, why sex for marks? Why is Professor D asking for sex in place of marks? Or why is student A offering Professor D sex for marks? Now, when I say student A, I am talking about both male and female. The first is because of the power imbalance. You know that the professor is high up and he has authority to act. So he's likely to do anything. And if he says, give me this, you may yield or likely to, because you know that he has the power to act. Lack of accountability is another reason why people offer sex for marks or requests for it. It is going to be so much of an activity for the management to say, every lecturer bring the scripts of students and we want to check and compare with the grades. I don't think it is done. So what they do is they submit the last sheets, right? The result sheets. And because nobody is checking whether what is reflected on the result sheet is what student A wrote, it can just fly. So people explore that loophole. Even the student's vulnerability and dependence could be a reason for sex for marks. This is due to naivety of the student, emotional instability, lack of knowledge of what is happening here. They just come and they feel, okay, anything can happen, everything goes and all that. If this is getting this, I too can also do that and get what I want. And then cultural stigma. It is rare for victims to report cases of sexual harassment because of cultural norms. When you want to say something, they say, oh, close your mouth. I had an experience one time, someone I worked with, and he would come and rock my seat, you know, making it very uncomfortable for me because other persons, you know, I share office with other people. And when I speak with my mom and tell her, she would say, I am praying for you. He cannot do anything. I am praying for you. I was not happy at all. And the only time I had peace was at the close of work By morning, I am afraid again. Because he was using both the hostile environment kind of, you want to abuse the person, you want to shout and talk down at the person at all times for no reason. And then when he's sober, come and be rocking the seat. I don't know if you understand what I mean. You're seated and then somebody's just rocking and like maybe trying to say, I am sorry for shouting or something and all that. And in that office where I worked then, I had someone I reported to. And he said, you know, I am just one voice out of the many. Even if I say anything, what will they do? This is the problem. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. This is the problem. Now, weak institutional policies. Policies are either not set, or even when they are set, they are hardly implemented. Because they don't want people to say, this is this. They don't want people to, carry it on their heads. Gender inequality. In Nigeria, we still have the problem where women are treated as inferior to men. If you take it to the United States, for example, the moment you have a problem with a woman, you are afraid, even when you are right. Even when you are right, you are afraid. Then fear of failure. Because a student is afraid to fail, they are ready to do anything. They are ready to give in. Low self-esteem and need for validation. You want them to praise you. You don't even know your worth. You can't sit down and study. What you want is, I just want to pass and leave this place. And then material gain. I know when we come around during the personal parade, we hear this person has been employed for being the best graduating, this one is this and all that. And you come and you're looking at that day. I too want to be rewarded, but you don't want to work for it. Limited opportunities. Now, what are the effects of sexual harassment? Sexual harassment in an academic environment can have tremendous and wide-reaching negative repercussions on the students and the society at large. There is decline in academic performance. A student who is a victim of sexual harassment can hardly perform, not only in that subject, but even in other subjects. Because the mind is always on this, and the person is unable to study for the other subjects. Absenteeism. The fear of the lecturer can make the student not to attend lectures anymore. You want to stay away from that class. You don't want to see him. This dirty old man. Psychological issues. Harassment can also take a huge emotional toll, which over time can lead to mental health issues like severe anxiety, depression, and trauma. Like what I said, when I close from work then, that is the only time I can gist and laugh and be myself. By morning, I am afraid again. Social withdrawal. Victims tend to withdraw themselves. Mental stress and compromised integrity. Long-term psychological impact. Even when they are out of the institution, it is still there. And there is always tomorrow. You can run into this professor somewhere and just look at him. He may not even remember because, of course, he may have so many others, but you cannot forget. You cannot forget. educational integrity. It has the effect of denigrating the authentication of learning, at the same time eroding the standards of education. Gender disparity. Institutional reputation. It affects the reputation of the institution. If you have been following the news, you will know. Institutions where we have this issue of sexual harassment now in recent, most people don't want to go there. In fact, if you say you graduated from that school, they look at you with one bombastic side eye. Erosion of trust. And then money for marks, which we know as what? Sorting. Is that what's strange to anybody? It is strange to you? What do you mean by it is strange to you? You've never heard of the word sorting. Okay. Now you have heard, and I'm going to talk about it. So sorting, or money for marks, also known as sorting in Nigerian academic parlance, is another form of academic corruption, where students are required to pay money, either directly or indirectly, to their lecturers or academic staff in exchange for better grades or academic advancement. It is good if you've not heard about it, and it is better that you're hearing it now so that you can learn. This practice compromises the fairness and credibility of academic assessments, corrupting the integrity of educational institutions, as financial transactions dictate the academic outcomes of students rather than merit-based assessments. Sorting erodes trust in institutions, it devalues qualifications, and promotes a culture of corruption. Here, both lecturers and students engage in a mutually beneficial but illegal and unethical exchange. I met someone, I think some years ago, I was prosecuting someone. She read economics, graduated with a second-class lower, but she could not spell economics. Yes. She couldn't spell it. Now, types of sorting. It could be by direct cash payments to the lecturers, where a lecturer demands for it, or because you know that this lecturer likes money, you just put the money in an envelope, and inside the envelope, your matric number or whatever number is also written, and your full names. Gift giving is another form of sorting. Now, the lecturer may not have asked for anything, but you just feel like doing him a favor. Lecturer says, I'm traveling to Abuja. Oh, sir, I can buy your flight ticket. Or I'll take you to the airport. So, this West Castle and all that. Around my house area, they are selling fuel. I couldn't get it for you, sir. You know? Compulsory material purchases. I don't know how you buy books here, but when we were in school, even if you make photocopies and cram everything in the book, word for word, the fact that you did not buy, you will fail. Yes. So you have to have your own copy of the lecturer's book. It is a form of sorting. You didn't have money to buy. You took from a friend that bought. You made photocopies. You read it very well. You reproduced everything. The moment the lecturer checks his list and your name is not amongst those that bought, it is another matter entirely. And then the man who bought the book and never opened it could have a B. I don't know if I'm making sense. In-kind services. Instead of cash or gifts, students may offer personal services to lecturers, such as working in their houses, running errands, and so on. Sexual favors is another form of sorting. You may not have the money, but you have something else to give. Examination malpractice fees. I know it's not here. Administrative fees for grade adjustment. People do that. Paying for project or thesis completion. Special centers. I know that is common amongst, is it WAEC? And when they say they are going, the private, the GC, they say they have special centers. Fee for exam result withholding or release. Now I heard about a case where a boy had stayed in a university for more than 8 years without carryover. He doesn't even know why his results were withheld until the matter was brought to our office, and he got his results and graduated. Paying for favorable class attendance record. I know when we were in school, they say 75% attendance qualifies the person to write exams. So those who don't come to school could pay and have their way. Group payment or collective favoritism. Now, there are instances where in a class, maybe the course rep will just organize and say, you know that lecturer, Professor D, is bereaved, or is having a child dedication, Thanksgiving and all that. You know, we can just package something. You're packaging something for someone who is bereaved. Inside that package, the list of those that paid and their matric numbers are all written there. You go and give the professor that is bereaved. Consequences of sorting. Like sexual harassment, it devalues the academic system. It erodes trust. It brings about inequality. A student who can read very well doesn't have this thing again because they don't have the money to pay. It reinforces corruption. Money for marks or sorting in schools not only undermines academic standards and perpetuates a culture of corruption and inequality, it also harms the credibility of institutions and the future of the students. Now, legal framework and institutional responses. Most schools, tertiary institutions, don't want to talk about this. It is not as if the students are not complaining or they have not heard, but they don't want to talk about it. They just leave it there. There are several laws in Nigeria prohibiting sexual harassment and bribery, which is the money for marks. The first is the ground norm, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999 as amended. If you look at section 34, it talks about right to dignity of human person. A person who harasses a student does not have respect for that student. The Penal Code, which is a law that is used in the northern parts of Nigeria, also has something to say. Then Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act 2015. It says a person who coerces another to engage in any act to the detriment of that other person's physical or psychological well-being commits an offense. Commits an offense. And then the Criminal Code, it provides for indecent assault as an offense. Now, in 2020, a bill was passed And the bill is to prevent, prohibit, and redress sexual harassment of students in tertiary educational institutions. That bill, I think, was sponsored by Senator Omo Agege in 2016, and then they brought it up again in 2019 after the World Bank's report that says that of all the graduates of female students in Nigeria, 70% have experienced sexual harassment. 70%. Now, under that bill that was passed, although we are waiting for the assent of the president, says, an educator shall be guilty of committing an offense or a felony of sexual harassment if he or she has sexual intercourse with a student or demand for sex from a student or a prospective student. This one is yet to come into the institution, but because of the favor, he can help me get in, you know. Or the person intimidates or creates a hostile or offensive environment for the student by soliciting for sex from the student or making sexual advances towards them. Directs or induces another person to commit any act of sexual harassment or cooperates in the commission of sexual harassment by another person without which it would not have been committed. Grabs, hugs, kisses, rubs, or strokes, or touches, or pinches the breasts, or hair, or lips, or buttocks, or any other sensual parts of the body of the students, or displays, gives, or sends by hand or courier or electronic or any other means naked or sexually explicit pictures or videos or sex-related objects to a student, or whistles or winks at a student, or screams or exclaims or jokes or makes sexually complimentary or uncomplimentary remarks about a student's physiques or stalks a student, commits an offense of sexual harassment. When I was reading this, I asked myself, and I tried to practice, where they say, pinches the hair of a student. Will I feel anything if somebody pinches my hair? I don't know. But as simple as it is an offense. It is an offense and can fetch the harasser 5 years or up to 14 years imprisonment without an option of fine. Now, under the ICPC Act, Section 8 prohibits gratification by an official. An official is the academic staff, the lecturers, those working in the institution. Says any person who corruptly asks, receives, or obtains any property or benefits of any kind. Sexual favors are benefits. Or agrees or attempts to receive or obtain any property or benefits. You have agreed to do it for himself or any other person. My emphasis is for himself. Anything already done, on account of anything already done, you have given the marks or you intend to do it, commits an offense under the ICPC Act. Section 9 also says any person who corruptly gives. Now it is not the lecturer that is asking, it is you that is dancing around and taking your body to him, or bringing out your money, confers or procures any property or benefit of any kind. Benefit is the word I like. To, on, or for a public officer who is the lecturer, or any other person, or promises to give, say, yes, sir, I will meet you at that spot. Or offers to give, confers, process, attempts to procure any property or benefit of any kind, to, on, or for a public officer or any other person on account of any such act, omission, favor, or disfavor to be done or shown by the public officer is guilty of an offense of official corruption and shall on conviction be liable to a term of 7 years imprisonment. Now in 2020, the commission secured conviction against Professor Richard Akindele. You can read it up. If you go to ICPC website, you'll find it there. Professor Akindele was a professor at that time at the Obafemi Awolowo University. And this story is so sad. You know that lecturers don't go for students who read their books. When they want to sexually harass somebody, they look for the foolish ones, the ones that are not interested in studying. But then this Professor Akindele's case, the lady was running her master's degree program. And then he failed her. I am using the word, he failed her. Because if you remember, when I was reading the introduction, I said they could inflict or deflect, either to make a person look competent or bring it down to make a person look incompetent. Now, Professor Akindele made her look incompetent, and the guy said, no, I am an A student. I could not have failed this course. And you know, for a course that you really like, that you know, even when you are sleeping and they wake you up, say, this, fill in the blanks, you know, even in your sleep, the guy said, no, there is no way. So she wrote a petition to the commission, and investigation started. She brought all the WhatsApp messages and blah, blah, blah he's been sending. On his phone, he had deleted everything. And the commission had to bring another professor, a tougher professor, to look at the script. And when the script was remarked, she got a B. And of course, you know that she was right to have said, I could not have failed. It is impossible for me to fail law of evidence, for example. And we were able to get most of his deleted messages and all that, and he was prosecuted. When he saw the overwhelming evidence against him, he pleaded guilty in court and was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment. Now, Section 19 of the ICPC Act says, offense of using office or position for gratification. It is as simple as that. Because of the office or the position you occupy, whatever you do that is out of the ordinary could mean an offense under the Act. Now, institutional responses. Like I said, as clear as this thing is, as rampant as it is, most institutions don't want to talk about it. It is not as if they don't know. They know very well, but they don't want to bring it up at all. What they do or what they say is we have our own policies. Like when the bill, the sexual harassment bill, before it was passed, I read something that the leadership of ASU didn't like it. They said, no, it is a direct attack on lecturers that since we are autonomous bodies, we could handle our own issues. We can deal with it in-house. We don't want to bring it to the public. So for that reason, most institutions don't want to talk about sexual harassment or extortion. They don't want to talk about it. They create their own reporting mechanisms, which the students don't even trust. Because if you go and report, you make a complaint, you lay a complaint. You now see lecturer mommy. It is a man you reported that this lecturer has been harassing me. The moment lecturer mommy sees you, you want to cause problem in this school. You cannot keep your are you the first? And all whatnot. You know, it makes the students not to have confidence in the system. And yet institutions are saying we can deal with it by ourselves. So they create reporting mechanisms, outlines, you know. They even form committees. I know here you have the Anti-Corruption Transparency Unit and all. You can report your cases there. Some institutions like this create awareness programs, campaigns to educate students and staff about sexual harassment, consent, and their rights. Workshop seminars and orientation programs are conducted to foster an environment where victims feel empowered to report incidents and where perpetrators are aware of the consequences of their actions. Some institutions even go as far as supporting the victims. Recently we had a case. It is still in court. And it went viral. It's on the social media. Where the judge had to detain the lawyer of the defendant. The defendant now is the harasser. Why? Because the lawyer called the witness, a student, a victim. So you want to come and testify in court. What are you going to tell the court? What are you going to tell the court? And all that. And the victim, who is the witness, now told the prosecutor. And he brought it up in open court. Okay, they said, if he calls you again, record it. And the judge was angry. It is even the school, from the school. You know, the school would just be divided. Some for, some against. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Yes. So the ones that are for the victim, you see how they'll be running, oh, you need this, other, don't worry, everything, don't be afraid, we're rightly behind you, we'll follow you to the very end. And the ones that are against, God help you. Both you and your clique, even friends, they just leave you because once they see somebody smiling and greeting you and you look and you see this lecturer looking at you, I don't want them to know that, you know, you're my friend. But some institutions provide counseling services, legal assistance, emotional support to help the victim and reassure them that nothing can happen. Feel free to come to us. Come and tell us what is happening. Some even partner with law enforcement agencies. You know, for those institutions that feel that they are autonomous bodies, they can handle it and all that. If you look, as we go on, what they do is they dismiss the lecturer. They don't prosecute. But the ones that are interested in taking this thing to the very core, they just bring it to us. And of course, we will prosecute. Public exposure and accountability. In response to public scandals, because of, you know, when it goes viral and all that, then sometimes you see that is when the school wants to act. I saw something on YouTube not too long. I think in April or May this year, a lecturer in what's it called? UNN. How he's been harassing a married lady. If you check, you would see it. It's still there. Just some few days ago, I read it, and all that. We wouldn't have known, but for the students. It's like the students now reported or told her fellow students, and they had to set him up. They planned a sting, and they went there. While she was in the office, I don't know how professor had to remove his shirt and everything and was left with boxers until they broke the door. If you go on YouTube, you see that they broke the door and he was just there. Then disciplinary action and sanction. Some schools of higher learning have begun to take stronger disciplinary actions against those found guilty of sexual harassment. But I think what they do mostly is to dismiss the lecturer. Why? Because they don't want to bring it to the public for people to know that this is happening in our school. So they just secretly, put up voluntary retirement or leave and all that so that we can continue in peace. Now, like I said, the first one is the Professor Akindele that was prosecuted by the ICPC. These other ones I read online, from the same OAU, another lecturer for molesting a 19-year-old student, Ambrose Ali, like that, and so on and so forth. There are so many of them. So many of them. University of Lagos, University of Port Harcourt, Federal Polytechnic, Bauchi, even University of Abuja, like that, just on and on. Now, the last two, that's number 16, right? That's a very popular one. The matter is still going on. And then this other one too, the last one is still going on. Now this last one, when I called my colleague to find out, he's been prosecuted from Abuja. You can see that what he kept was either sex or 100,000 naira. So it is either sex for marks or money for marks. And then sometimes even students' activism. When students revolt, this is a well-organized environment, so I don't expect that from here. But when students revolt like that, you see that the lecturers will just, go back. Public awareness campaigns. Now, how do you deal with abuse of power in institutions as it relates to sex or money for marks? You need to strengthen legal framework. Laws against sexual harassment must be effectively implemented in your institutions. Institutional reform. Empowering victims. The moment the victims know that the management of the school is with them, they will have this confidence to always come forward to lay their complaints. But when nobody is listening, nobody wants to come out and make any complaints. Promoting gender equality, transparent grading processes. I don't know how you're going to do that, but having a transparent grading process could help a great deal in dealing with this. Empowering students to speak out. I think this is one of the reasons the rector had directed that this be treated. Empowering students to speak out. Feel free to lay your complaints. Education and awareness. We recommend mandatory session about sexual harassment, especially during your orientation when you just come in. It is good to always let them know that this is a zero tolerance institution. How do you report? Reporting sex or money for marks. Except it is provided in the policy of the school. I don't think there is any format. You can lay your complaints anyhow. However, it is better to put it in writing. It is better to put it in writing, giving a detailed account of everything that transpired between you and the harasser or the one that wants to extort you. Who may report? A complainant, a victim, any member of the institution. If you see something, please say something. Any supervisor or other person to whom a report has been made. Any person who otherwise becomes aware that sexual harassment or assault has taken place, or there is a demand or offer of bribe. How to report? It is good to report in a manner that they can identify the complainant and the suspect or defendant. You put your name, how they can reach you, contact, or any other relevant details. The name of the harasser. If you have his or her contact, please put it up. State out in details everything that happened. I went into his office and he grabbed me. Please write it down. But not that even where you don't have explicit details, you can still put up a petition. There is this thing, someone who commits a crime always leaves something that they can use to hold him for a good investigator. So even if you don't have so much to talk about, but you feel that you've been harassed in any way, just go ahead and report. A case can be reported in an anonymous manner. You don't want them to know your name. You can just send a message if the rector has an official email address, or you have a suggestion box or anything. You can just put it there that this person is harassing me. He takes us in module this, and all that. You don't need to write your name. You can just do that if you are comfortable with that. As I begin to round up, now it is an offense under the ICPC Act not to report. Section 23 says any public officer to whom any gratification is given, promised or offered in contravention of any provision of this act, that is the Corrupt Practices Act, shall report such gifts, whether cash or kind, promised or offered, together with the name, if known, of the person who gave, promised or offered such gratification to him, to the nearest police officer or the commission of police officer. Any person from whom any gratification has been solicited or obtained by force, or from whom an attempt was made in contravention of the ICPC Act, should please report to the commission or nearest police officer. I advise you come to the commission. Any person who fails without reasonable excuse. Now, some might say, it is my problem if I don't want to talk about it. Yes, if you don't want to talk about it. But if something happens and they find out that you were also involved somehow, then you have a question to answer. So any person who fails without reasonable excuse to comply with what has been stated in subsections 1 and 2 shall be guilty of an offense and shall on conviction be liable to a fine not exceeding 100,000 naira or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 2 years or both. Section 64 of the ICPC Act, however, protects an informant. Protects your information also. And that is why we can go out and prosecute and get conviction. We don't bring out everything to the public until we're done with that. Now, finally, all said, to effectively address the abuse of power in academic institutions as it relates to sexual harassment and grade manipulation, it is important to develop a comprehensive institutional policy that clearly defines what this is, the reporting system or procedure, and the consequences of violations, establishing independent review bodies with student representation to ensure that allegations of sexual harassment and extortions are adequately treated, thoroughly investigated. It is crucial to enforce existing legal frameworks and conduct educational workshops to inform students and staff of their rights and available resources. Now, implementing a safe anonymous reporting platform or channels and protecting students from retaliation will encourage more individuals to come forward. Furthermore, promoting gender equality in leadership roles and establishing mentorship programs can also contribute to a safer, more inclusive academic environment. Collectively, these measures will help foster respect, integrity, and equality in our institutions. If you have any complaints, please feel free. That is the ICPC toll-free lines, MTN, Glo, the email addresses. You can report your complaints to us. If you don't feel comfortable to lay your complaints here, however, it is good to lay your complaints to someone that has authority to act. For example, the rector of the institution. You know that he has the powers to act. Thank you very much and best wishes.
Distinguished cadets, ladies and gentlemen, one more time, please let's applaud Barrister Kioba for that very robust, brilliant, and stimulating paper presentation. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. She has enumerated different forms and types of sexual harassment and expanding on the topic abuse of power in the academic institutions, the intersection of sexual harassment and grade manipulations. And of course, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our resource persons has also given us depth and also insight on every form of harassment the accuser and also the defendant has a place in the court of law should you find yourself in any of that kind of practice. And of course, you all know that the Rector of Maritime Academy of Nigeria, Commodore Emmanuel Ifedwa, upon whom the leadership of this institution is on, has set the bar so high and also upgraded the standard of this institution such that you can't find any form of such practices in this environment. One more time, ladies and gentlemen, please. Let's applaud the management staff. Let's applaud the rector for setting this institution in such a standard that you cannot find any of this kind of sexual harassment in this institution. Thank you. Thank you. While our amiable lecturer was actually giving that paper presentation, I saw our cadet doing justice to the topic, paying keen attention, and of course I believe that you all have questions for our resource person. Please, the floor is now open We want to please receive your questions and treat them accordingly. Please, if you have any questions, endeavor to approach the microphone stand and air out your question. The floor is now open, cadets. Thank you. Any question, cadets? No question? All right, thank you so much. One more time, please, let's applaud ourselves. It is always indeed an honor and a pleasure, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to listen to a man whom I have so much regard for. I would like to please crave the indulgence and the permission of the representative of the rector to invite to the podium for a vote of thanks the registrar of the academy, Mr. P.M. Netson, a phenomenal registrar. Please, with a resounding applause, let's invite him up to the podium as he gives us a vote of thanks. Thank you. Make that applause louder, please. Thank you.
On behalf of the rector, management, staff, cadets of the academy, we want to sincerely thank our guest lecturers this morning. Mrs. Edodo-Emore, we are grateful, ma'am. The barrister, Mrs. Kioba, Anabraba, she said it all that as at 1981 she was crawling. And when I actually saw your CV this morning, 1981, I was just in Form 2, secondary school. And you are still looking strong and hearty. The Lord keeps you. We are most grateful for these brilliant presentations. We are grateful for our sister. This is not the first time too, Mrs. Kioba. We've had partnership together and will continue to partner together for the well-being of the academy. Cadets, speak out. The MC have said it, that the rector have raised the standard of the academy. We don't tolerate sexual harassment. We don't tolerate gratification, manipulation of grades. And we encourage cadets to speak out. In fact, it's on record that we have terminated the appointment of staff because of this conduct. And even those that would suspect them, but we couldn't get them right-handed, we transferred them from such departments. So that is the standard that the rector have set in this place. We will not tolerate it, and we'll make sure that we sustain the standard set already. On this note, I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank the students. I want to thank the MC for being an international MC. In fact, yesterday, Dr. O'Connor is a witness where the lady that spoke yesterday wanted to invite him for an international presentation. Thank you for a well-done job. And we want to thank there are people that are on scene, behind the scene. Dele and Co., thank you so much for giving us this conducive atmosphere. Throughout this period, we never had any glitch, not that of INEC. And everything went smoothly. We are grateful. The organizers, committee, Vincent, we are grateful for the sacrifice, the inputs we've made to ensure that we have smooth organization by our guests and logistics. We are grateful to the Public Affairs Domo. You have been so wonderful. Keep it up. Above all, I want to thank God for the person He has used to change the narrative of Academy without eye service, without being economical with the truth. The man at the helm of affairs, Commander Duja, has performed beyond expectation. We want to, cadets and everybody, please, if you wouldn't mind, be on standing ovation to give this man that God has given him vision and has changed the academy to where we are today. Please, can we be all on our feet to give round applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You can sit down, please. You can sit down. I'm most grateful. Thank you, bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. One more time, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please let's applaud the registrar for that vote of thanks. Thank you. The next item on our serial this beautiful afternoon is a presentation of plaque to our very amiable, esteemed resource persons. I'd like to please invite to the front of the stage the representative of the rector to please make the presentation of plaque to our special resource persons this morning. Please invite with me to the front of the stage Dr. Kevin O'Connor. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as invite for the first presentation of plaque, our very first speaker for today, Mrs. Edodo-Emore. If you're excited, please put those beautiful hands together and make it a resounding one indeed. Thank you. For the second presentation of plaque, ladies and gentlemen, please invite with me to receive the plaque, Barrister Anabraba Kioba. Thank you. Please, all management staff, faculty heads, please, you are to stand in front of the stage for a group photograph with the representative of the rector. Okay, I've just been informed it's going to be done outside in front of the main entrance of the auditorium. Thank you so much to all our online community. Thank you very much for your participation. We receive your comment and we are very much grateful. We have come to the end of the fourth quarter of the Maritime Lecture Series, holding here live at the Right Honorable Rotimi Chubike Amechi Auditorium. And we say thank you very much, everybody, for your steeze and composure. We are grateful. All cadets, you are to remain seated. And our faculty heads and resource persons will please